Thanks for joining Conversation Nation. I'm Travis Montague, founder and CEO of Holler. I'm joined with Gary Arora, global lead, LaunchPad and Seeds of Change Accelerator. Gary, thank you for joining us this morning. Would love to hear all about both programs that you're running for our viewers.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Travis. Yeah. So at Mars, I've been, for the last few years, been running LaunchPad, which is our digital innovation platform. And the mandate there is how do we partner with emerging startups like yourself in disrupting the way we are interacting with consumers, we are selling to consumers. So a 100-year-old CPG company, how do we work with startups to reinvent ourselves? So that's LaunchPad. Seeds of Change Accelerator is our accelerator program, which is helping 6 emerging food startups that are changing the landscape of food. And that is through the lens of flavors of the world, responsible brands, socially conscious brands, clean ingredients. So brands that are helping move Mars's mission forward on making world a healthier place.
Yeah. So both of those are really interesting because Mars is hundreds of years old. And one is the way that you're looking at things from the LaunchPad perspective is challenging platform and how you're thinking about reaching consumers in new and exciting ways. And then the other side of the business, you are examining the SKUs, right? Of all the things that you sell and thinking about the next generation of products for Mars. So obviously this wasn't by accident, but I would love to hear more about the thinking at Mars that's driving these programs.
Yeah, so at the heart of it, everything is driven by the consumer. So the consumer today is fundamentally very different than what it was 100 years ago. So when it comes to the tech side, the way they're interacting with media is very different, which is why platforms like Facebook, Google are surging and traditional TV is declining. So we all know that. On the food side of things, consumers are getting very conscious in what they put in their body, right? So we have this effect where you have a consumer that is hyper conscious about the ingredients that they're putting in their body. And at Mars, we have our Mars Food division that is focused on a pretty big purpose, which is serving billion healthy meals by 2021. And we said, why don't we go out there and look at companies that are driving that mission further, but that are actually building products that are at the very cutting edge of what the consumer wants tomorrow. So plant-based eating is big. Consumers are asking for cleaner label ingredients. Consumers are also asking for brands that have social purpose and have responsible causes that they are backing through their founder stories. So for us, the idea was how do we find those amazing startups and entrepreneurs and actually give them the infrastructure at Mars to help them propel that mission, which helps our broader mission of serving billion healthy meals by 2021.
Well, so I love the direction of where you're going forward, but when you think about that against the historical brands of Mars, right? Especially when you think about some of the products are global brands, multi-billion-dollar brands, and they're not necessarily considered some of the healthiest products. How do you make the transition and decide, how do you the next generation of things that you guys are going to do versus the things that you guys have done in the past?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think for us we have a very balanced portfolio look, right? So when you look at some of our chocolate products or gum products, they have a role to play in consumers' life. That's more of an occasion where you treat yourself, right? Yeah. So chocolate is like a reward somebody gives for having a great day, or you want to get that little pick me up. That's very different than a healthy meal or a meal that you put on a plate that is driven by nutrition needs, or that is driven by a social gathering of people together having dinner together, for example. So I think for us it's not an and or an or. Yeah. It is fully just looking at the consumer journey and how do we add those meaningful moments. So be it through a treat, be it through what we do on our pet side for our pet owners, and then with the food business, which is more focused on full meals.
Let's talk about Seeds of Change for a moment.
Yeah.
I'm really fascinated by the work that you're doing there. And when you're thinking about the portfolio of companies that you spend time with and you want to promote and accelerate, what is the criteria that you're looking at?
Yeah, so we have, so the Seeds of Change Accelerator, we accepted our first cohort this year. So we have 6 incredible founders. So we have Fora, which is plant-based butter. We have Noble, which is plant-based burger patties, all clean, natural, not processed in a lab. Brooklyn Deli, which is Indian flavored simmer sauces. Oxtail, which is starter kit Asian meals, True Made, which is reduced sugar and sometimes no sugar, ketchup that's made with vegetables, and Promise, which is basically disrupting the whole Middle Eastern hummus market. So we have these 6 incredible founders that are, were selected, and the criteria that we looked at was primarily around, are they helping create the meals of tomorrow? What are the brands that are shaping the meals of tomorrow through 4 lenses? One was around, we had a very criteria on where we knew the market was headed, which was plant-based, socially responsible brands. It was around brands that have clean labels. We were also looking for founders that actually had product in market, so people that were, had something that we can truly accelerate them on. And then lastly, it was founders that associated with what we were trying to do. So we went through a rigorous process. We had over 200 applicants apply, and we found the 6 that were very aligned to what we were trying to do.
Yeah. So when you think about, so Mars has a lot to offer, tons of infrastructure, scale. Yeah. When you're working with these brands who have found product market fit, they're tapping into a unique user behavior that consumers are enjoying and adopting. How do you help a mission-driven brand scale?
So, it's funny because when we look at the startup world, we see the grass is always greener on the other side. So sitting in a big corporate, you look at the startups and you're like, man, this is amazing. Like, I wish I could have the nimbleness and the agility of decision making and the pulse on the consumer trend. They look at us and they're like, oh, I wish I had access to all these resources and the scale of Mars. And I think for us, we wanted to develop this mutually beneficial program that allowed us for them to really, look at our resources and truly help them accelerate. And I'll give you a couple examples. So if one of the startup needs points of distribution or access to some other retailers like Target or Whole Foods, can Mars use their big infrastructure to get these guys access to retailers to get distribution? Or if somebody is going through a branding, packaging refresh on their, design and the way their product shows up to consumers, what better to work with, some of the agencies that support Mars and these multi-billion-dollar brands to help them develop their product footprint. So the way we are helping these entrepreneurs is connecting them with our experts, both internal and external, and helping them work on very specific 1 to 2 challenges. So the program is highly bespoke. We have each startup at the start of the program identifies 1 or 2 big areas where they need help, and we use our internal and external network to help bring that to life over a course of 4 months.
Obviously, the acceptance rate is really low, right? And so it's a highly selective program.
Yeah.
So you hear a lot of folks wanting to go into the business of starting mission-driven brands.
Yeah.
And some might say, oh, well, everybody, if we make it mission-driven, it sells, right?
Yeah.
So there's that thing that happens from time to time. What are the things that you noticed between so you said 6 companies that you selected?
Yeah.
What are the characteristics of those companies that made them stand out?
I think authenticity is the name of the game when it comes to mission-driven brands. And I think consumer of today is not stupid, so they can smell if somebody is just, being mission-driven for the sake of it, adding purpose, slapping purpose everywhere. So what's amazing about all the 6 founders is they have incredibly compelling and authentic founder stories of why they decided to start the brand, right? Yeah. And sometimes it links right back to a purpose. So the Promise, which is the Middle Eastern hummus brand, Anthony is of Syrian background, and part of the sales from the product actually go back to help hunger for kids that are living in refugee camps. So for him to come out and be part of that story is far more authentic than somebody just slapping purpose on their brand. So I think for all the 6 founders, what's been incredibly powerful is to hear their stories and what made them start the brand. And sometimes it has a very direct link to a social purpose, or sometimes it doesn't, but it's just that their stories are driven by something that is way bigger than profit. That's what makes these brands resonate with consumers.
Awesome. And then what are the pitfalls on the second part of that question? The things that you see some of the companies fall into when they're trying to build mission-driven brands?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the authenticity point, right? So do you have, when you have a compelling founder story, it's easy. It's easy for a consumer to feel like, yeah, I can link that to why this brand exists. I think the watch out is purpose marketing is sexy these days, and everybody, big, small, medium, is trying to find how they can be more purposeful. Yeah. And I think everybody should do their part to help in whatever they believe in. But forcefully fitting it away to adding it to your marketing and media stories, I think it's something that will fall pretty flat with the consumers of today, because not everybody can be a Tom's, or not everybody, can have a purpose like that and build a brand at the back of it. So as long as you stay authentic, as long as you stay true, and as long as whatever mission purpose you're supporting is very closely tied to either the founder story or the product, I think it makes sense and it comes out. And I think every brand should do the good, but should not totally use that to sell, so yeah.
When you're thinking about, so let's take the hummus company, for example. They're entering into very big established category, right? And now they have to compete. So when you're thinking about the brands that you bring on and how they're going to compete and break through in these new categories, like what are the types of things that you all are strategizing around about how to accomplish that?
It's tough because these guys, some of these guys are in brand new categories. Like the plant-based butter company is relatively very new, right? So we have had margarine, which is it's not butter, it's margarine, but this is truly a product that tastes 10 times better than margarine, cooks like butter, tastes better than butter. So they're getting into and disrupting a whole category. And then on the other hand, you have Promise, which is going after the same place of the aisle where Sabra has dominated for years. And in each one of them, I think at that stage, having a very unique and compelling proposition, both in the product and the stories, is super important. So what we've been working with the founders, and actually Promise and the ketchup, which is TrueMade, is the ketchup company who has to go against Heinz, where it's very easy for Heinz to just make a ketchup with vegetables, which is one of its propositions. What is very important for these founders is to really stick to that story, right? And not just let all this noise kind of be the reason why you're just you get. So they have to be incredibly laser focused on why they started it, what got them the product market fit, what got them the signs of successes that they saw in the business that they're so passionate about, and not let all of this fall apart. So we're working a lot with the brands in helping them tell this very powerful story on shelf, because the consumer will resonate with that. So if Heinz goes and builds very similar product like TrueMade does, but if he comes out and doubles down on his story, the consumer hears that. So it's a very challenging, it's a crowded space. I mean, tech is crowded and so is food. And what it comes down to is an amazing product, but also an amazing proposition and story. So
the reason why I asked you a question is because I just kind of wanted to learn how a big brand like Mars is educating startups to do this. We're obviously not in the food category, we're in tech, but we do face some of the similar challenges with respect to breaking into a new environment. For example, we are a distributed platform that is across all these messaging apps across category, and at this point we're doing 600 million messages a day, right? And the enormity of how much data that is exciting, but it creates new level of responsibilities. When you look at the big at-scale tech companies that are available today, they've capitalized on the data that they're able to collect from users, not for the benefit of the users. And so at Holler, we are building the next gen tech company, a tech company that will leverage data in an intelligent way, but only for the purpose of helping that user's conversation and making it better, and developing privacy preservation techniques that will deliver them optimal results, but at the same time making sure that their data is not being capitalized in a way that they didn't intend, which is antithetical to how a lot of the large tech companies in our space, especially in the social category, has treated this particular subject matter in the past. The big problem that, I find that when you have the responsibility of a lot of data, you have partners who want access to that data, and we have to say more so than not. And it's an interesting thing to kind of think about and tackle when you talk about sticking to your guns, right? Like we say we won't monetize data in this way, and we have to live that.
It's almost like the rules of the game are not fair, right? Because you as a small startup are like not able to, you want to stick to your ethics and do the right thing while the big guys keep getting bigger at the back of monetizing.
On that particular
asset. So it's tough, and it's the same it's exactly the same problem with the food, on the food side of things.
Yeah, that's why I thought this would make for a really interesting conversation, because it's like, how do you break through and build a challenging brand in an environment where you're operating at a higher standard, but you're smaller?
Yeah, it's tough. I think it's tough, but I feel like, again, the beauty is that the consumer of today is hyper aware. Yeah. Right. They're hyper aware of issues with data. They're hyper aware on the food side of what they're putting in their gut. They also they also know what brand A versus brand B has stood up for years. Yeah. So all of a sudden that somebody's like, oh, this is trendy and cool. Let me, if I'm a big ketchup manufacturer and I'm just like all of a sudden come out with a product that is not authentic to my part of my fabric, consumers very quickly spots it out. So it's no longer, I think the days are gone when you can really fool the consumer and use marketing gimmicks to like really, be who you're really not. And I think a lot of these brands and where you are, Travis, I think the beauty is that, your authenticity on maybe on the data side versus these food companies on their product and their story side is hopefully what's going to win out with the consumer.
Awesome. So switching gears here, so I have a fun question for you.
Yeah.
So what was the last emoji that you used?
The muscle one.
And then what's the story behind that? This is gonna be good.
I think I sent it to you because I'm having back pains today. I was like, I will make it, and I put the muscle emoji. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
All right,
so
well, that's a good story right here. Thank you for coming by.
Absolutely, man.